Hey guys, so I just watched a video. It was a reaction on a channel I just discovered today. The channel's called Cinema Therapy, where a couple of guys, one's a therapist and one is a film, uh, what's he say? Unlicensed film enthusiast? Something like that. Anyway, it's really excellent video breakdown of, a reaction really to the Pixar movie Inside Out. And man, I only seen that movie once. I watched it with my dad and my stepmom around when it came out on DVD, and I totally just, like, because of where I was and you know, being around them didn't really make much of an impact. I'm like, oh yeah, I liked it. But watching just the clips from it now and their response to it, it sort of struck me how good at least certain elements of the movie actually are. Man, I'm still trying to recover from crying for the last like 10 minutes of the video. It's about half an hour long, but um, it was really cool and really an excellent approach to um, depression and sadness. At least the elements of the discussion that were about those, which it definitely culminated in. Um, the kind of crux of the movie, of course, is that sadness is necessary for the experience of joy, or maybe for the efficacy of joy. And I think that reality, one, is perfectly encapsulated in the gospel and in Christ on the cross, and two, is completely, utterly, not just neglected, but willfully ignored throughout the church. And those of us with depression, those of us, on the outskirts, those of us who don't, not effectively, naturally flow along with the joy only, happiness only, exuberance only affect, you realize it more, but of course it isn't said, and the message is driven home so ubiquitously that there is no room for sadness, for depression, for any, anything on this sort of negative spectrum. They mentioned this scene where the Riley, the kid the movie was sort of about, well, her brain was the context for the characters, who are the 5 basic emotions anyway. Depicting depression, I haven't ever thought about that scene when I was watching it, of course, because I wasn't really able to dive into it a whole lot, and then I didn't ever come back to it. But there's this control panel that all the 5 different feelings, joy, sadness, fear, disgust, anger, used to sort of control and have Riley, the character, interact with the world and her own feelings and respond to things and whatever. And this sort of depression started taking over, and it was just the entire control panel went dark and became unresponsive. And the 2 guys who were reacting to it kind of went into it in pretty good detail about how depression is not just something you can work your way out of, and you see the chaos of the different feelings. Who are used to controlling everything, but nothing's working. And one of the guys, the non-therapist guy, pointed out, like, with his experience with depression, if not clinical depression, at least, lows that parallel depression, that, yeah, it's like you have what should be in your head, but you're not able to do anything with it. think the therapist was the one that made the analogy of people say, well, just pull yourself up by your bootstraps, kind of thing. But one of the other ones was like, yeah, you grab your bootstraps and you pull as hard as you can, and they just tear off, and you don't have anything to work with now at all. Yeah, like when you have days and weeks of just being stuck in your chair, not because you can't physically get up, but because your brain does not connect with the rest of you in such a way, so you're just kind of in a meat suit that is unresponsive. And this is it's really hard. So first of all, for instance, a third of Psalms or Psalms of Lamentation, but how often do you hear those, turned into worship songs in church? How often do you walk into a successful church, a productive, well-oiled machine of a church that people generally look up to, would use an example, or even just say, oh yeah, this is a good, they know what they're doing, and the worship set, I say the whole set, right, or even just one song, but certainly the whole thing, is songs to have you bawling on the floor on your face. Right, songs that have you really just anguishing in the depths of the ineffability of your sin. This is what is necessary for discipleship. But how often is this the culture that we walk into, that we sustain, that we are allowed to be anywhere around, right? It's never, obviously. Yeah, and they show this scene from the beginning where the character Joy was trying to get Sadness to not smile more, but like tell a joke that was supposed to be funny, that was supposed to get her to be happy or something. And how often do we experience that, like the telling you to smile more, or the be happy, or think happy thoughts, think positive thoughts, and your life will get better, everything will get better. What was really great about the sort of depiction of even a brief depression that Riley was going through in sort of the climax of the movie was that it wasn't able to be solved by becoming happy. And the character Joy had, in her own arc, has come to realize that she herself could not provide the answer, the ability to get Riley out of this numbness, this inability, this inefficacy of being. But Sadness was, and it sort of clicked, like how, even just for myself, right now, my current situation, my current, period of dysfunction that I've been in for months, that we have to be sad. We can't, in fact, it's, the whole message around us, the thing, at church and family and everyone, is be happy, make yourself be happy, pull yourself into happiness, or experience the joy of the Lord, right? Whatever. Joy comes to the Lord, so you're not from the Lord, so you're not turning to Him enough. All different variants of this. And I realized, no, this is so well depicted in this movie, because if you suppress sadness and only try to strive for joy, joy becomes ineffective, and you feel nothing. And you experience, you are on autopilot. You can't do anything. And that's what we need so much more of. Just I myself, in my situation, and certainly as a church institution, a cultural institution, really, is that we need to embrace the negativity and the sadness and the despair, even, and face it and deal with it by not shoving it away or deciding we have to distract ourselves or just get rid of it somehow, or magically just walk out of it because we're doing more of the right things now. No, but internalizing it, because it's already there. We internalize it and live in it. And that's what, when Jesus is agonizing in Gethsemane, right before he was taken to be crucified, or before he was taken to the courts that led to him being crucified, he was agonizing our agonies, including, very much so, the ones that we don't even know that we have, and certainly the ones that we put off, that we refuse, that we are taught, constantly ground into our heads that we are not allowed to, because it's wrong, because it's sinful, because you just need to get through it. Turn to Jesus and he'll get you through it. He's literally with us in our shame, our anguish, our grief, our despair. And he carries it with us. He has carried it before us, and he will carry it after us. And he's inviting us to carry it with him to the cross that he has already defeated. But he's inviting us to carry it with him so that we can share a holistic aspect of his heart, as just as we see in this movie and we experience in real life. There is no joy without sadness. There is no victory in the cross without the crucifixion that is the cross. There is no resurrection without the crucifixion. And that's what, because obviously the resurrection is a reality, that our entirety of church has decided that that's where we're at, so that's all we need. But Jesus doesn't say, those who aren't happy with me have no place with me, are not worthy of me. He specifically says to pick up your cross, even to pick up your cross daily and follow me. Those who do not are not worthy of me. And I would sort of explain that worthiness not in terms of value, because everyone is phenomenally valued more than in any, certainly it's not based on whether we are actively following him or not, but literally it's an acceptance of our own worthiness. And when we decide that we are not worthy, that's the worth that we end up living. And when we decide that by not picking up our cross, and as the near entirety of the church has demanded that we don't have a cross to carry, it becomes mind-bogglingly difficult to find the room for that anywhere. So it's like those moments when you see something come out of secular culture, the culture that says that God doesn't exist, but that it either reflects or encapsulates the gospel more than almost the ubiquity of the church and church culture and church teaching. Yeah. So, go watch the movie, and go watch these guys' video reaction to it. And I don't in fact, I challenge you to cry, not to force yourself, but if it's there, do it. Don't hold it. That kind of goes along with the theme too, is especially for men, for us dudes, in conservative culture, most especially, I had this girl. I know I had a girl, but there was a what's the word? She was like a Bible study helper, worker, teacher thing, young woman at a church the one church I started at, and I at one point was sharing a very impactful moment from my testimony with her, and I told her that I might cry, and I sort of apologized as a formality. And she told me, well, you probably shouldn't do that because I will get angry. And it makes her angry when men cry. And she proceeded to exposit to me how, A, Jesus never emoted, and B, never shared anything with anyone that was emotionally impactful. That we simply never see an example of this. And this was, can't even remember. If I had been baptized, it was only a few months later, less than a year for sure. Yeah, because it would have been pretty soon after that testimony experience. Was only a month after my baptism, a little month and a half after. Anyway, so that could have gone horribly wrong. I didn't even realize it, but I didn't have, of course, most of this stuff thought out at the time anyway. Came later. It came later realizing that John 11:35, when it says Jesus wept, that he wasn't like turning away and hiding a tear. He was literally bawling in the middle of the street, in the middle of all of these people on the way, like the kind of bawling where you can't function, you can't move, you're just in a heap, a mess. Is the I can't remember the word, but it's the concept behind the word, the Greek word that is used there, and it's specifically like there are other instances of the more subtle tearing up. Other places in the New Testament, I think, but I can't remember where they are. Yeah, so we have that, and then obviously in Gethsemane itself, where he's on his face, bawling, literally, he's sweating blood. I don't know if it was a commentator that said that, or if it said that in the scripture in Luke. Now I can't remember for sure. Like, if God is on his face weeping for something that he knows is going to happen and is not going to change, and is still like agonizing through this anyway, but our message in the church is you can't do that. In fact, it's wrong if you're doing that. And you know what? Like a smaller dysfunctional church that I was at, it only had maybe 12 to 15 people, including staff. Well, staff. I don't think anyone was paid. And there was the worship song, and I was praying for, I think, just the people there. Maybe over what we should do, that my wife and I should do at that time there. Like what was going to be our role at this place that we were at. We hadn't been there for, a few weeks. And it was never getting off track. Right? So I'm praying, like, of course, intently, like, head down, like, and the worship leader, like, in the middle of supposedly leading, whatever this thing was, like, actively calls me out and tells me I'm doing it wrong, like, over the microphone system to everyone. She didn't, I don't doubt she knew my name, frankly, so she didn't call me by name. She's specifically describing the things that I was doing and saying, no, this worship is not this. We stand up and, dance around and wave our arms and whatever. Another church, I wanted to be on I felt called to at least ask to, if I could sing as part of the worship team. And for like a month and a half, was getting strung along by the worship pastor, not really giving me a straight answer, until finally she said, "You're worshiping wrong." She's effectively what she said. I've been watching you from on the stage, and you're not mature enough, because there's dancing in the Bible, and you should be dancing. You should be exuberant. My word, not hers. The dancing thing she was on, and of course she was very unsure about what scripture might actually say, but it was just one of those, like, go read the Bible, you'll find it things. But she was never, willing to tell me that until I asked her for, I don't know, however many at the time. And this is where we're at. Another example, when I was in charge of, or like head of the school department, I was supposed to be leading some of the younger guys there, and the student pastor, I guess he would be technically, as far as our relationship with him went, said the same thing again as that girl a few years earlier, that when there's a crisis situation, men need to be strong and composed and not show weakness, not even acknowledge their own humanity effectively. because I had basically, there was an altercation between a couple of the guys. I hadn't moved in yet because it sucked and I hated it, and I was like, look, I've been going through some stuff, so I wasn't there like I should have been there. And he pulled me aside later, and oh, that was exactly the wrong thing that you should have done. And that's when I started thinking about, well, wait, what did Jesus do? And now here's this crisis situation where everyone's like, look, Jesus, you're too late because Lazarus has died. And even though he knows he's going to fix it, even still being moved with compassion into such a great degree that he's broken down in a bawling mess in the middle of the road. At least on the side of the road, near the road. Yeah, I have been rambling for a long time, guys. Just look. If you're here, you are familiar with all of this already, and I hope that just vocalizing it to some extent is helpful. You're not alone, not even in a. I expect this, frankly, is probably just a loud minority that really drives home the propaganda of happiness only, joy only, exuberance only, extroversion only. But they're the ones, obviously, that tend to be in authority positions and generally are very much in control of everything. So, yeah. Check out the video, the reaction to Inside Out on Cinema Therapy's channel, and chat with me down in the comments. I don't know. I don't want to say all the YouTube stuff, like and subscribe, I suppose, because how else is YouTube going to be like, hey, this is a video worth watching? So you determine that, but mainly I just want to have a connection here, and if you relate with or are interested in any of the stuff that I've talked about, we'll talk about it. We'll figure out, like on Xbox or something, we can set up something more formal if we get enough people in here to chat with. Otherwise, I'll see you next time. And by the way, that intro video that I put up a few days ago, where I was about to react to Hurt from Johnny Cash, I've been trying to have the whole thing ready to go. I've uploaded it twice, and both times it's been blocked everywhere in the world on copyright grounds. I'm trying to figure out how to get it put up in a way so you guys can actually see it. Yeah, that's it, and I'll see you later.